Hello, folks. Welcome to the Historical Fencing Guild's weekly live stream. As usual, I'm your host, Nicholas Tockert, and my picture is glitching a little bit. Sorry about that. All right, sorry. We had some technical difficulties in the form of a very large Windows update that decided to just reset right as I was getting on. So thank you for your 2 minutes of patience. And we've already got two folks here. That does my black little heart good. Folks, we've got a lot to talk about this week. Few delays, few things came up. I got a bit distracted by the news. And, we're down one viewer. Oh, well, that happens too. Hope you come back. If not, whoever is here, hit the like button. I got to figure out where it shows up when you guys are looking at it. And I've lost my little sticker. This week is just maddening. As you can see, my wife has hooked me up with quite possibly the most glorious Hawaiian shirt ever. This has very little to do with historical fencing, but goes way back to my take in that I have been wearing obnoxious Hawaiian shirts on the field for as long as I can remember. And one of these days, I'm going to get a nice fencing jacket in some kind of rather twisted Hawaiian print. I was told it makes me look like a dad. I am a dad. I'm told it makes me look old. I started going gray at like 13. So the salt and pepper, as long as it's here, folks, I don't care if it's pink. Prefer not pink, but as long as my hair stays mostly attached to my head and not creeping down my back any further or anything like that, we're good. What are we talking about this week? Well, folks, we actually have quite a bit to talk about. First thing we're going to do is a few announcements that I wanted to do later, but we're going to kick that in. And before I get rolling anymore, remember this is sponsored by The Simple Sword, available on Amazon, along with all my other books, as well as my lovely patrons, the newest patron being Miss Cindy Kep, who is a wonderful author, wonderful creator, and really fun to collaborate with. I hope to do more stuff with her. I think she might be even involved in some of my other projects. Wink, wink. Sorry. It is very, very warm here, and as my office is not air conditioned, it gets smoking. This lovely soft glow is from the sun that will be setting at some point and incinerating my very pale skin. But what are we talking this week? We're going to open up with neck knives. Those following the saga of my neck knife know I lost my beloved CRKT minimalist neck knife. It was a CRKT minimalist spear point with a black blade. I carried it for years. It became a second part of me, and I went like 4 days without sleep. Well, I have to talk to the coolness, because first off, one of our supporters, he's not a patron per se, but Steve Clausen actually ordered me a replacement, which is great, my exact knife back. There wasn't a lot of communication. So what happened is my wife decided to surprise me with this. This is my CRKT minimalist Bowie cut that glows in the dark so I don't lose it. Now, I'm not going to get into this because I'm actually halfway through a 2-part video that I will be releasing about neck knives. But this glows in the dark, this glows in the dark. That's kind of cool. We're going to get into that. Now, while all that was being discussed, pardon me, I didn't realize right offhand that Steve was ordering me a neck knife. I certainly didn't know my wife was going to be awesome and surprise me with one, along with more Hawaiian shirts. So I ordered. What happened is I got a note. Hey, Nick, you're the neck knife guy. I'm the neck knife guy? Well, yeah, you're the neck knife guy. Apparently, I'm the neck knife guy. Okay. What do you think about the Sheffield? No, Sheffield? To those of you who don't know, Sheffield is one of those brands that kind of floats around Walmart and is kind of considered a bit of a knockoff. It's been around a long time, but, it's made in China knockoff. We'll have to see. Well, I'd heard that. I'm like, you know what? I need a new neck knife. I can't find mine. So I ordered this, which is the Sheffield Bolo. And brief precursor, it is rather similar. It is marginally larger. The finger holes are angled slightly, and there's no gimping, but it is a thicker blade. So, what to do? Well, I'm doing a review of this, which will be up later this week, as early as tomorrow, but no promises. Good evening, Cindy. But I will be doing a review of this. Now, why would I bother with this? Because this guy runs about between 35 and 40 bucks. This guy runs 10. So, I will be doing a full unboxing, as much as necessary, review of this later. I'm going to be doing, like I said, I'm in the middle of doing a review of this. When my original gets in, I'll do a review of that. So I may just be doing regular neck knife reviews if people are interested in that. I also found out that there's a carbon fiber non-metal model, which, given my normally aquatic tendencies, is really tempting. So I have to talk to Steve Clausen because he's T-Rex. He's my small arms guy. But I'll probably, if I can get my fuzzy mitts on that, I might even do a review on that. If there are things you guys want me to do reviews on, especially in the form of low-end knives and trainers, hit me up either in the comments or direct message. I also, as always, have my Facebook Messenger for people who know me through that up, so that if people want to send messages through there. A lot of people, I find, watch YouTube through consoles, which makes conversing through the YouTube Messenger a little challenging. In fact, that's what I do when I watch Brian K. Morris's Nevermind the Furthermore, which is on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday now. He also has Clever Title pending on Tuesday nights at this time. But great guy. You should watch his stuff. I try to get back. I try to plug people. So, what we're talking about this week. First off, I want to get into a little bit of a reminder, a refresher, if you will. And that is the first most important thing when we're talking defense as a concept is tactical awareness. Like, 1 second. Better. Okay. I was tactically aware of something in my nose. But tactical awareness, knowing what's going on around you, watching the news, watching the weather, and planning accordingly for your trips. In this 2020 era of nuttiness, that can include as much as remembering your mask, your EDC gear, whatever that is. And if you like, I can do another talk on what I carry when I leave the house. I believe there are a couple rules. You don't leave the house without a knife. In fact, you don't go anywhere without a knife. Before my glasses even come on, because of the way they're hung up, my neck knife is back on. That's because every study I've seen gives you about double your chance of survival if you are in a car wreck in the wilderness. If you end up in the wilderness and you have a knife, statistically, that doubles your chance to survive. Now, people who know me know I have a long, proud history of wanting people to survive. And thank you for the likes, folks. That's going to help the algorithm spread me around. And I'm also, EDC, I'm a minimalist. So I carry one of these. I carry Ultrafire, which is hung up, very small, single AA flashlight. And I usually carry some kind of lighter. I prefer torch style over just like a flick of Bic. But bare minimum, those and like a pen and a Sharpie. Realistically, I have a mechanical pencil, a Sharpie, and one of these because they are part of my drawing kit. And if you're an artist, you should never be without your tools. And I certainly am that. Now, before we get going, please remember any questions, comments, fire them away. As long as people are civil, I will be happy to discuss them. I am a little rattled. A lot of people don't know this. I'm originally from the Portland, Oregon area. And that should be enough to make anybody go, oh, so that's why he's a little off his game. So I'm a little off my game. I'm going to try to keep pushing through because we need positivity. We need joy. We need knowledge. So we're going to keep rolling. I got into, and I'm really glad that Cindy's here, just the start of what could be a great conversation. And that's because I saw an article and I shared it on the Historical Fencing Guild public group, which if you're not a member, you really should join. That's where we float resources, humor, people can meet and greet and really discuss. And that way the digital guild can meet the live, the live guild, and people can overlap and discuss and exchange ideas because that's what I'm about. That being said, we were talking about why sword fights in comic books so often just don't seem to work. It's very difficult to have a dynamic sword fight. And I read this article and they made some really good points. And I thought about where it was good. What's the best sword fighting I've seen in comics? And I have to go to the Legend of Ghost graphic novels that came out. They came out in comic format, were bound up in trades, wonderful books. New flavor of Mio. Gonna have to work on it. Okay, but we could get into writing sword fights because what do you think about a gunfight? A gunfight is a very staccato kind of thing. And a lot of music theory kind of creeps and dance creeps into your understanding of sword fights. Because the actions usually are bang and result. Done. That is the whole attack. That would be the equivalent of a single thrust, either hitting, being parried, or missing. And that's the whole thing. But in even the briefest conflict, it's a lot more steps, and they're not repeated, so they get very complex and subtle. So it's difficult to write up unless you really know what you're talking about, and unless you have the space and time. So putting a good sword fight into like a 4-page mini comic would be a major effort. It's why you see so many shortcuts in all fight choreography in comics, especially comics. Anime can be notorious. There's good fights, and then there's what I call cheap fights. Now, what am I talking about? And I hate to say this because Rurouni Kenshin or Samurai X was one of my favorite anime of all time. Great fun. Good concepts, lots of morality, just a fun anime. But as soon as the styles got a little squirrely, you start seeing the cuts where there's like a slash and then action lines, and then people fall down, and everybody's like, "Oh, that was amazing!" When you watch the depicted action, it's like, they're all too long. So, okay, while I was babbling on about it doesn't show what happened. Sydney Kemp said good evening, which I mentioned. Steve Clausen, great to see you, Steve, said sword fights are anime. The sword fights are too long. For comic books, they really can be. Sword fights, I find it's funny. If they're between people of even moderate talent, they're either very, very long affairs or very, very short affairs. A lot of people, what? You watch the movies and it's all, we'll talk. You will talk. Clangety, 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 clangety. Ad nauseum. Until it's dramatically appropriate. When actual sparring, actual tourneys, actual, and recorded bouts, duels, etc. It's the difference between like a gunfight. When you see a gunfight in a movie, lots of times it's pow pow, duck for cover, run, pow 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 pow, do this, pow 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 pow, do that. dual wielding was flying through the air. Whatever, so see if I can do that. But exactly. Cindy kept says, yeah, often the bouts were crazy short, 60 seconds or fewer, or really long, or well matched, or doing a lot of mental chess. And that's something that is tricky. Because if you do a sword fight believably in a comic book, it can look really anticlimactic. Huh! Parry, dead, move. Some of my favorite bouts that I ever fought were melees where we didn't mess around. Parry, dead, move. Oh, nope, dead. Snipe, go, snipe, go, snipe, go. Very simplistic, very refined. Get the job, get out. And then you have like these one-on-ones where there's a different mentality. Most people, I think, want to have a bit of fun when they're in a sport or reenactment group. A lot of times, it's more fun to have some fun while you're sparring going. Very few people just click over to that switch and just kill you now. Bam, done. Because one, it's not fun, and two, you don't learn a lot. But when you get the other side of it is, what do you get? Well matched, excellent fighters. Equal level with some measure of talent. And it will happen as you ratchet up. As long as the skill set, you start seeing some beautiful things. And that's where the writers want to live, because that's exciting to read. You see the fight choreography in your head. They jumped up, they spun, they, threw the shot, parry, throw the shot, parry, distract, stab, whatever. This sort of give and take is where it gets interesting, because it's a conversation. You have to realize a big part of writing and understanding about I'm not in my usual lane here. I realize I've slid over from my usual practical sword mastery to a little bit more writing theory and stuff, because it's part of my audience, and part because it's been on my mind. If you're really getting, that's a conversation. One of my favorite martial artists of all time is a guy named Doug Marcaida. Most of my viewers know who Doug Marcaida is. If you don't, you really should. He's probably the coolest knife guy on the planet. And in my mind, he's the reigning king of the karambit. But he talks about, it's a conversation. I do this, oh, you do that. That how you respond tells me a lot about you. So as a writer, when you're talking Western martial arts or Eastern martial arts, the fighting style, how they fight will tell you loads about the character, because the rule is show, don't tell. In all film, you don't want a lot of narration. And if you look at a book like a movie in your head, you don't want, and then they came out to the field, and then he was an evil man. He was a dirty fighter. Don't say he was a dirty fighter. Have him open up with pocket sand and shank a guy. Now we know about this person's character a bit. So you wanna look at that, like Jackie, my man Jackie Chan. Love Jackie Chan's. Jackie, the character who's in almost all his movies. He's the same guy. He's this nice guy who doesn't want to be in the situation. He's not walking around Deadpool style with, Leapfield pouches and 3 swords and a boomsticks. He's like, oh, ladder, nope, I don't want to, nope. I think like his whole career could be nope, bad day, nope. And that's how he expresses his boom. I'm sorry, do not boom. The character. Now you take somebody who's large, powerful, especially a low dialogue, intimidating character, is going to be driven by their physical presence, their body language, and how they fight. And a big guy shouldn't fight the same as a little guy. I hate that when the fight choreography is the same. I also have a problem when the logistics don't make sense. It's really hard for somebody small to punch out somebody large. Now you can see it in instances where it's done right. You see somebody like the depictions of Black Widow, where she's because her attacks aren't like there'll be some dorky kicks and some ballet stuff, but a lot of the actual attacks are momentum based. It's I'm going to twirl up, grab this arm, and hyperextend it as part of the attack by whipping my entire body weight as fast as I can in a slingshot maneuver. This makes sense. And guess what? That kind of mentality makes sense for a smaller person. I have encountered people who believe because they are trained that body mechanics no longer apply. And there's a mythos in that, both in Western and Eastern martial arts, where a snap kick, for example, against a standard unsuspecting target might be very devastating. But against a more hardened, especially expecting target, any attack that telegraphs can really telegraph. And that's where, when you look at fiction, I would love for my students, my viewers, to look at it from a critical view. Physics works, yes, because it's very hard for and yes, there are martial arts to train their whole lives who can do it, and it's a wonderful thing. A lot of it's knowing how to align the anatomy and a lot of nifty things. And hardening is a real process. The problem they don't show you is the guys who do true like knuckle hardening, the guys who are regularly punching through bricks and stuff. And I'm not talking show bricks. I really hate breakaway boards that they show a little kid, he runs up and he jump kicks and it snaps the board. Yay, he feels special. And it's great that he feels special. But if he tries to do that to a real board, he's going to hurt himself. And if he tries to do that to a real threat, it's not going to be as effective. So I think that that's a bit deceptive, and that bothers me. Not a popular, bit of a hot take, but I'm totally okay with that at this point. So you need, when you're writing, you need the characters to fight like they do. When you're thinking, you got to think of yourself and think of your real capabilities. Now, for me, on a good day, I could just run away. On a bad day, I can hobble semi-quickly. That's not going to do me a lot of good. And given what's going on, usually I've got my son, me getting into a tactical situation is really a bad idea. So the best tactical solution to a combat, for me, is to mechanically avoid it at all possible. And if it can't be avoided, realize it can't be avoided, and then use whatever I have or resources around me to deal with that. And that's a skill set that needs to be discussed. Because tactical awareness, I know I repeat certain things. I mean, every video you talk about tactical awareness. Yes, because when you get on a list field, okay, you're going to fight in a 10 by, we'll say, we'll be generous to say, nice little field of 15 by 15 feet. Okay, that's a moderate to little field. You have enough room to move around. It's not like a 10 by 10 grudge match, but it's pretty tight. You have to know the flooring, how slippery it is, where is the light, because everything can be a weapon. If you can't hit them with it, you can hit it with them, or you can use it to shield you from them, or vice versa. You have to look in that style and think that way practically. Now, it's interesting. I brought up Samurai X Ronin Kenshin, depending on who you talk to, as an anime that one of my favorites, but some of the sword fights were cheating. Now, it's interesting because they did a live action version of that. And the live-action version has some of the best choreographed sword fight scenes I've seen in recent years. And I think it's really worth a watch. If you get a chance to look up live-action Rollini, Rollini Kenshin. Sorry, it's been 2 decades since I studied Japanese, so I'm rusty. But Japanese with the speech impediment, folks. But look it up. The fight scenes are amazing. And we got talking, and like I said, I was talking to Cindy. What has the best fight scenes? And the written wise, the Dresden Erden books have some of the best. Okay, Bob Salvatore, has written some amazing fight scenes, and they make sense when you read them. Ironically, let's see, Harry Dresden. Jim Butcher. Jim Butcher writes really solid fight scenes. There's another author who's floating in the back of my mind, and I can't remember the name of the book series, but just phenomenal. Why am I bringing these up? Because part of figuring out how you want to fight, yes, you have to fight for your body type. I am sorry. If you are of a small build, the logistics of weapons handle differently. My buddy John, my buddy Steve are both 6+. That means a two-handed sword for me is a one-handed sword for them. This scales to my buddy John with his reach like this scales to me. He's 25% taller with 25 or more % longer arms. That means this sword is what I would consider a fighting length dagger, or at least a poniard. Old flexi dagger, blessed is a flexi dagger. You have to fight with weapons that fit you. They have to be scaled to you. You need to be able to draw them. You need to be able to make them go. And you need to train. Which loops me back around to another project that'll be coming out this week. Remember this? I was going to have this cut out this week, but we had some problems. This was going to be cut out as part of my vacation, and my wife got hurt, so we spent the vacation kind of with her knee up and me being a good husband. And since then, been playing catch up for me doing that. But I'm also missing my knife. It's like I have a replacement, but it also means I have a sheath, not unlike this, that currently does not have a knife. So my new goal, since I can't find that knife anyway, is to make this part, which was added on after I talked about this originally, being the trainer for one of those. And I may have to leave these not cut out. I'm not real sure. I'm going to have to play with that for function and see if I can't get this stuff to actually sheath inside the Kydex holster, a sheath. Now, if I can, that will give me a functioning neck knife trainer that I can wear as a neck knife. And if that works, I'll pull out the old orange spray paint all of it orange so that there's no confusion. And then we can talk about rapid deployment of a neck knife because people want me to, apparently. And if that's what people want, gosh darn it, I'm going to do it. Now, I do want to thank because I was able to get this because of, in part, because of Cindy Kep's patronage. That's what happens. When I get money through my Patreon, I use it either, in case of emergencies because they happen, but primarily it's to buy the cutting boards to make things. It's to buy armor to keep me or the people I loan safe. Books to review. I'm going to be reviewing this knife. I'm not sure what's going to happen to this thing after I'm done with it. If I can get a reliable supply where I can turn things over, I may even start doing giveaways. We're going to see. Because I want everybody to get what they can out of this. And while I'm looking for corporate sponsors, I'm not going to be like, video game, the annoying ad. Yes, video game, the annoying ad. That has nothing to do with most videos you watch, but they have been just selling themselves all over. And you can tell by the very cadence of that, exactly what I'm talking about. I have no intention, not that they want me, but of going that route. Now, if a swing away can opener's like, hey, Nick, I'd be like, hey, you're awesome. But no, seriously though, I want to keep to things that matter, and I will always review things that are given to me. I won't give a beneficial review that's, I won't lie. But so it's like, Nick, I made a knife. Boom, try it out. Nick made body armor. Boom, try it out. I will happily, every time if you give it to me, review it, because one, people need to know about your product, and two, I get a new product to play with. Nope, we got a ping. Let's see. The ping says, oh, that is cool. Okay, what happened is Steve just sent me a link. And normally I wouldn't talk about the link Steve sends me. But, oh, jeez. Okay, so what happened is my order got swapped out. Instead of getting replacement like what I had, Steve Clausen, supplier, arms dealer, and awesome dude, has just ordered me the Cool Hand carbon fiber fixed blade neck knife with Kydex sheath. I have paracord and ball and chain. We're going to talk a lot about that with neck knives. The strings of neck knives are crucial. But what that is a non-metal neck knife. Now, why does that intrigue me? I'm aquatic. Now, granted, I have been locked down in the fields of paranoia, also known as Central Indiana, and I've been without proper immersion for a year and some change, and it is eating at my soul. But given my tendencies towards aquaticness and my paranoia about not having a knife, having something like that would be a great idea. I've been wanting them to try and make dive knives of that era, of that style. And the nice thing about a good neck knife is, depending on the way the sheath is, like this guy, if I wanted to with the 6-hole model, I can relace it and actually strap it to my arm as a wear here. I can wear it on my ankle. I've done that with my other knife. It's not the best dive knife, but it ain't bad, and it's very. These are very, as a rule, quick draw friendly. They're oops. They are really groovy. And like I said, I'm really interested in seeing that because theoretically, was it Markforge? Makes a 3D printer that makes very, very sturdy materials. And the idea of being able to possibly 3D print out a quality neck knife, I mean, granted, I'd have to sharpen it. But the idea of that technology being able to come down to this intrigues me, because I've considered something like that to do my own trainers. Not that the Wuja, the guys who make this, don't make great products. Not that Cold Steel doesn't make great products, but being able to custom tailor high quality materials and make my own trainers in the numbers I want on site, pretty much at a whim, is really appealing. And I love the point where modern technology meets classic training and ideas. I'm debating ordering a set of the plastic, they're plasti nylon fencing foils. They have a set of they're electric foils with buzzers. So they have, essentially classic in plastic, so you have the same water protection and not have to deal with rust. But they have audible buzzers, so there would be no or little argument about hits unless it's a simulcast thing, which the way we fight doesn't happen as much as people think. No, so that's something I'm looking into too. Something that actually fits. Yeah. It's like I would love to design a neck knife for Steve. It's just going to be nearly 6 inches long, I think, to be comfortably to scale. Because this guy's around, let's see, well, it's really easy. This guy is roughly 5 1/3 inches long total. And it's a bit bigger than this guy. But a neck knife for Steve would probably be a variant of one of these, which is done by Angel. So that's a horrible thought. Steve, since you're watching and you're paying attention, what do you think about trying to get a custom Kydex neck retainer for your Angel Sword claw rambit thingy? That might be something that would really work well for you. You have one. Well, there you go. That's the nice thing about knowing somebody like Steve. Any good idea he probably has tucked away somewhere. That makes me happy. I'm glad to hear it. I also have considered, because apparently the Cold Steel Dart, which is a triangular, about yay long, maybe a little shorter, punch style dagger. It's a straight poke. Has a neck knife sheath you can order for it separate, and the whole rig runs about $10. So maybe if this is going to be an ongoing thing, and please comment, tell me what you want me to review, because I don't want to spend money reviewing products you guys aren't interested in. But let me know, and I'll put that maybe next month. I am not a wealthy man, obviously, by the wonders of my high tech, totally not Harbor Freight giveaway tarp. That so I do this on about a shoestring budget, and we're so I'm always looking for neat ways to do it, but I want to do the right stuff for you at the right time for the right price. And honestly, if you look at knife review companies, you look at trainer review people, you want to see reviews for a $300 hand-forged Scandinavian skinning knife. You can find those for days. But a review of the Sheffield cheapy folder, is this actually worth even bothering with? Short answer, actually, yeah, it's a nice little box cutter. But people don't do it. They don't review inexpensive products. I think part of it is a lot of people can write off. They kind of have a cycle where they review it, they write it off as part of a business expense, and haha, I have this big expensive thing. But even if I could, there are enough people out there doing that I don't know if it's of any real quality or use. So let me see. And we do have 2 likes, 3 watchers. So whoever's not watching, whoever's watching, not mash that, please do. And if you don't like it, tell me why. Hop on. I'm totally open. This is a conversation. But and I derailed a lot this week. Like I said, the news has me a little uneasy, and I need to address that. Okay. In the coming week, what happened is we are no longer under 107 degrees out here. We're sitting between the 80s and 90s, which means at night it should be cool enough with a little work for me to do some of the videos I've had to put off, because I can't cook in that kind of heat. You do not want to see that fat, sweaty man mess that is me trying to do some of the stuff. Just not good for anybody. Yes, it's tongue-in-cheek. Yes, it's self-abasing. Have you met me? Okay. What are we going into next? Oh, I thought there was something in here I didn't discuss. I feel I needed to get into something more. Oh. I'm not going to repeat what was just sent to me, but I would say nobody wants to see that, but there's always somebody who wants to see something. Anyhow, I might try if I can get it. It won't be a live stream likely, just because right now, for some reason, YouTube is not letting me live stream through a mobile device. It has to be through a proper computer. And my internet is just a touch dodgy anyway. We're hoping to get a new net through, and I'm going to spend a vast sum of money, pretty much everything I've made on this channel, to be able to afford the bonus to get it installed to be able to keep the channel going. But as you guys can see with my lovely potato grade resolution, thanks to the internet glitching, that I think it'll be worth it for everybody. 1 second. I'm not sponsored by Wally World, but boy, I wish they would. You know, I got Nick. What's your go-to name brand? I'm like, Great Value. You know, if Aldi isn't around. Anyway, but then again, you might find sword trainers in Aldi. You never know what you'll find in that middle aisle in Aldi. But that being said, I do need to do more armoring, and if you guys want that either separate, I'm considering doing separate projects. Of course you have, yeah. Where instead of, because I need to do something for my patrons, and right of late, it's not that I haven't been appreciative, it's that part of my shtick is to avoid the gatekeeping that just about everybody does in the interests I have. You know, comic book guys can get bad about it. What I literally came in opposing, that's what brought me in. Western martial arts. I learned to teach to bypass gatekeepers. And, you know, RPGs, tabletop games. There's a lot of gatekeeping, either in cost or just attitudes. I'm not about that. So almost everything that I put out comes to the public. But I'm thinking of doing sort of smaller ebook versions, maybe something just about a brief, almost not quite pamphlet, but an ebook on rudimentary axe fighting. If that's something you guys would like to see me do, what I could do is probably write that up and then give it to my patrons as kind of double-ended as a primer. Yeah. Well, that's what I write. I write low-level survey courses. There are all these people I can point you to who have mastered their arts. You know, again, if you want to talk knife fighting, you look up Doug Marcada. He really is sort of one of the patron saints. I can't remember his name. I was laughing. There's a guy by the name of John Lovett. He runs the Warrior Poet Society. He's much more gun-oriented, obviously, than I'm in this channel. But he brought out a guy who was talking about the perfect emergency close quarters knife. A custom designed one. It's very nice. And it is a design that's been around. It's got teardrop handle, little hook, and straight out. I think he called it a pick. But because he made 2 of them. But essentially, it's the same design as my original neck knife, which I have still packed away. I may bring that out. That's been around since the 1800s, just worn essentially like a scout appendix carry. So instead of the back, in the front, angled so that you can get it. Hard for guys like me who rock the dad bod and have a bit. The cinch pick, yes. If you look at that and you look at something like this, they're very similar in function, but this is a 1/5, maybe a 1/10 the price because of names. And then if this turns out not to suck, something like this is literally a 1/10 the price. Actually, nearly 20th the price, you know what I mean? And that's why I believe, see, I have this problem. Okay. I'm going to pull out my soapbox here, but that's pretty much what this channel is, in part anyway. I believe the Second Amendment applies to everybody. And not just along racial lines or ideological lines, along economic lines. That means poor people should have access to reasonable tools. both for self-defense and just reasonable tools. This is a knife. I use it constantly. Yes, I did cut myself because I will say this: the grind on this particular one with nightmarishly unexpectedly sharp compared to the previous one I had. It's a little lighter though. But so I think everybody needs that. They should have access to training. It should not be the purview of the wealthy to know how to handle themselves. And that was something I encountered a lot in the society. What people don't know is to start out as, like, say, an SCA fencer. If you're looking, you need a jacket, you need gorget, you need a mask, you need at least one weapon. And by weapon in this case, I don't mean lifesteal. I mean a fencing sword of some sort. Okay. What's that going to run you? There are, gloves. You need gloves. You need pants that work. You need shoes that work. Men need cups, bare minimum. Women should wear something called a Jill. And I will still say a plastron. You're still looking at a $200 entry point. That's not counting annual fees and then paying to go to events, admission fees. A group like the SCA is very expensive. HEMA can be. There's a group out there. It's called ARMA. Oh god! But basically, they do Renaissance martial arts, and I can't remember. I think it's ARM for it. I was excited when I saw it, but there is in there a clause that to join that group, you have to sign off on a sort of an NDE that you won't share what you've learned, and you won't instruct anybody outside of that group. Well, it should shock everyone who knows me by now. That didn't float with me, so I'm not in it. Which kind of sucks because they have some really sweet translations tucked away in their private databases. But, so what I've tried to do is get the basics out there as cheap as humanly possible. That way, you want to try sword fighting. Hey, I want to sword fight. Well, how? My first book, and I love saying my first on the subject, because as soon as I get through this big old project I'm working on, I love it. I'm excited. It's a great project. I can take some more time and work on the strong sword. But nope. But once we're through with that, then I'm going to deal with more concussive, and I may do some light primers that end up bound because eventually down the line I want to do an omnibus. I got a message asking about their databases. They are behind a paywall. They're not shared with the public all that much. They're notorious for being shady. And that's all I'm going to say about that because I got friends in low places at this point. But, yeah. And I'm sorry, I'm tense, so I'm fidgeting. And I like to fidget when I have something in my hand. And, like, the accidental knife trainer, which is this literally was almost, yeah, I just rounded it a little bit. This was scrap from several projects that it just happened to turn into this little curve. And I quite like it, which is funny because up until recently, I detested finger holes because if you're disarmed, it can break your finger. And the response I always got from the guys who love these, including somebody like Steve, is going to be, well, don't get disarmed, idiot. But I'm rather fond of this as a dynamic that lets me handle something very similar to practice the grabs, etc., without hurting somebody without breaking my bank. So this is one of my favorite little things, and hence it comes out while I fidget. Yes, I use karambit trainers as fidget spinners. God bless America. So, pulling back a bit, I want my stuff to be out there, and I want it to be inexpensive. I want it to be available, and I want it to be easy. This is why I believe, and if somebody disagrees, I'll have an educated conversation, that simplified translations, how is that strange? I have people that tell me it's very, very strange. I have people that I've had well-meaning people pull me aside, stop teaching, not because you can't, but because you're not making any money at it. You know, most martial arts instructors have a per hour rate per student, and they balance the economy versus their needs. And anybody who knows, when I'm working with people I know individually, I don't charge them. I haven't charged them. I charge one person. That's because he asked me to drive out and do a special practice for his house, and I have no regrets with that. Because he paid me in gear largely, and that's cool. I far prefer barter over stuff a lot of the times, in part because it's not a tax thing, and in part because then nobody feels bad. I find people get funny around money, but I don't. I value what I have, and I value what I share, but I think the value is in part. It's just not about the money. It's about putting some good out there, and a lot of people say that, and then they send you a bill. And that's why I'm like, patrons, if you want to be my patron, and I am eternally grateful to the people like Cindy Cat, to the people like Steve. Steve isn't a patron; he's a supporter. He doesn't go through that website. He just helps me in other interesting ways. Ren Contessa is another person who's a supporter. The amazing Stephen Augusto, who was my first patron and is still there, even though it's really hard on him, is how I keep the financial side so I can afford the gear that I can't make myself, or the raw materials to make the gear that I can't just will into being. I haven't learned that kind of superpower. But I think this has value. I think it has value to anybody, regardless of color, creed, religion, orientation, pronouns. I may get something like that wrong, in part because I'm old, and in part because I'm goofy. But misnames or something like that. Everybody deserves to learn. If you want to learn defense, you should learn to fence. If you want to learn how to defend yourself, I believe that is a natural right of every sentient being, to be able to defend themselves, to be able to grow through that. That's the other thing. If I wanted to teach people to quickly defend themselves, and that was all I was about, I would be a gun instructor. Probably. I'm not that good at all. I can hit the broadside of a barn. Barely, because I'm nearsighted. I'm like the Swede. I can hit the broadside of a barn, and I'm okay with that. Anybody who says otherwise is just lying to make me feel better. But that's the nice thing about being harmless. It's like, I realize, save for very few live steel, I don't collect. I thought I was a big sword collector. I have a collection of live steel. I may do a whole video on it. But like, if I lined up, I could fill the room with trainers, and I still want more. Broad side of the barn. Broad. Big, like a billboard. But you take something like this. This is a great tool. This is a great trainer. This is sturdy enough where if I needed to, I could surprisingly feasibly defend myself with something like this. This was donated by Steve Clausen. And this is a training kukri, I think. Yes. Classic, very aggressive, very stout weapon. I love the grip, but you gotta make sure your armor matches your arms. I've gotten into that. Sorry. I'm at that hour lag where the caffeine hasn't hit yet. But yeah. So again, if you guys have questions, comments, please fire up. I'm thinking about trying, amongst other things, to do something for the writers to talk about writing fights. I don't know if that's something you guys would be interested in. A lot of what I do is how can I serve you? Um, I don't believe in coming in. I am right. I am the only right way. Everything else is the false way. Well, on 99.9 repeating things, very rarely do I like ego out like that. I'm not gonna go full low pan on people, but as we move forward, we're going to. I'm gonna keep putting this out here as long as I can, and I'm gonna keep talking about the same messages because learning how we may be shifting into an era where you're more likely to have to be able to defend yourself with something like this than have the opportunity to use something like this. And it's, I bet you would be interested, Cindy. And, you're a writer, you're a creative and curious person. A lot of times I have answers. I just need people to ask me the questions so that I can put them out there because it's you'd be interested in writing these stuff. So I love it. But I'm not trying to get political, but understanding how to defend yourself in a pinch with one of these versus one of these versus one of those things you're not allowed to talk about on YouTube. That's a short word that goes bang up. There we go. Something like this. This one's actually defective. It's a shame. I had the Nerf version of this all through college. There was a game called Killer by Steve Jackson. Basically, a bunch of college kids tried to assassinate each other. So I spent a huge part of I spent a huge part of college when I wasn't actively sword fighting, etc. That's etc. is knife throwing, axe throwing, armor making, things like that. Archery, yay. Pretending to assassinate or defend myself with Nerf weapons. No wonder I'm the way I am. Because I literally went through a couple of years of basically applied paranoia. Full improvised item class. I tell you what, Steve, I will make you a deal. Steve has been on me for a couple of years now to do an improvised item class. Basically, he came in on one of my how to defend yourself when you're quote unquote unarmed videos, years, not videos, sessions. Kind of famously known for my wife going, "Good God, I married Albrecht." That's a reference to The Heralds of Valdemar by Mercedes Lackey, who's a prominent Scadian amongst other things. And yeah, that's kind of what I do. He's been like, "Nick, you need to do a video. How do you break it down? Yada yada yada." I think I'm reaching the point where I might do it. I just need to do it. I need to do it in a proper format, and I need to do it right. So maybe I'll do it once you have one of your appropriate business things set up. I can do it as part of marketing for that or something. We have some ideas. Arrangements can be made because at this point, given the world, given the ease one can drop thanks to the assorted viruses and outbreaks, you got to think about preserving your knowledge. And I've always said, in my case, I believe the work is more important than the worker. That's why my goal is to try to train people to train. Deal. Cool. I know you'll do right by me. There are a few people in the world I trust to do right by me in such a manner. You are one of them. Go. I may have just got myself in all sorts of Dutch, but I think if I did, Steve will get me out of it. That being said, uh, yeah, we need to learn how to defend ourselves, and I believe a ring of practicality. When I teach people defense, I don't teach them pretty dueling. I'm going to look elegant and honorable. You can look elegant, but I teach them how to make go, and what works for them, how to make it go, and where to look to get more stuff. Because I don't know everything. Someone on YouTube who does instructional stuff who says I don't know everything. I'm not sure if I'm going to get like hit by a banhammer just for that or what. But to be Manda near, my wife's warhammers. No, I don't know everything. What I do know is, aside from the fact that I just unplugged my phone goofing off, is that I know a basic, okay? I like to think of myself as a sword master of the elementary level. I'll teach you enough. You want to be great. You can be great. You can be great at what you learn from me, and you can be great by going extra levels. Because it should, in any art you learn, you constantly train. You constantly look up new ways, new equipment, new things. If you think in terms of firearms, you could be really good with a bolt action rifle. I know some guys who, geez, they can pip the ace at unfathomable distances. Couple of the more colorful people could do it from where you need like the curvature of the planet and it moving under you starts to affect that kind of screwball range. And that might be part of why I say I can't shoot. I've been around shooters. Okay? It's a different breed. Impressive. But I don't believe in over, I am macho, I am great. No. I'm a guy who knows some things. And I'm really good at helping people find the things that, from what they ask, can help them. And it's more of the Ollivander of styles, the Ollivander of swords. How do you move? What do you want to accomplish? It's just, well, have you met me? I'm ambidextrous, dyslexic, and dyscalculic. Math and I could juggle numbers by looking at a page. They'll just float around. But stats make sense to me, and percentages are wonderful. Fractions hurt my soul. And we do not discuss factoring because I start to bleed black ooze out my ear. As if, like it's going to go venom symbiote and envelop my soul every time I get about the level where math goes factoring. Hate it! Hate it! But I did get past it. I did it. I graduated. I got everything done. There's no shame in sucking if you're doing your honest best. Hush, Steve. Don't. But yes, I will. I put it off because I had a couple people, and I understand the spirit in which Steve wants it. So we'll have to set it up. It will have to be a very much more organized than I've done in a long time video. What else do we have on the menu tonight, folks? We are at the hour, past the hour mark, thank heaven. So I will remind you, like I do at every time at the hour mark, buy my book. It's available on Amazon. Nicholas A. Tucker, The Simple Sword. It has stick figures. One other bit. A little bit of current events. These guys. Sorry. These guys. I made a big deal when I saw these guys on Amazon for $25. Like, you guys should buy them before they get picked back up. Because a lot of these groups aren't meeting up and they're not selling right now, these guys are down to $21. If you are at all interested in using a buckler or small shield to the point where you could use this as the center boss and attach to go out, get these. Look on the Zon. They'll come ship to you. Anyway, pardon my mood. Actually, no, don't. Hold me accountable. Somebody's got to be accountable in this country. Now, because I will say, part of the, if you, and I say it regularly, if you are a reenactor, if you are a HEMA guy, if you're starting to train, there is a lot of discussion about where you should go for your primary weapons. And I will gladly give, specialized input. But everybody should probably have my cold steel set here. These three. If I were to recommend, think tot, because it's what it looks like. Do they have them in bigger hand size yet? Not these. There are Rotellas, and they're running about 70, and that's basically a Captain America shield. You might actually really like that in heavy plastic. Steve asked do they have them in bigger hand size, and these are. Your hands can actually use this as a small buckler, Steve, because, yeah, it would be a little tighter than you're used to, but your hands could still work these. Not in a gauntlet, because I'm not an idiot, but anyway, I saw those on sale. They're up there. Oh, these guys are running like $6. So if you want a backup knife that's not terrible, understanding I despise, paint's flicking off. Oh, that's right, it does rub. Wow. I need to use a different type of paint. Want to see paint failure? Here. Paint failure. Boom. Oh, well, that's okay, because I don't use these often anyway. I'll just put these totally safe paint chips in the garbage. Anyway, still handy dandy little dudes. Not my favorites. I don't recommend them, but they work, especially if you're on a budget. Actually, Cole, I don't have one handy, but there's some good prices on the cold steel knife trainers that I can recommend too. There's some really good sales on this because people aren't buying, and that's when you strike. You gotta be smart. Like, offsetting that finding a riot shield to train with like I have is nearly impossible right now. There aren't a lot of them. They got bought up by police departments and they got bought up by protesters. So the people who want to use them for non-protest related, who just want to use it as a shield, are going to have some trouble finding them. Which we may want to look to see if those Rotellas are up to, because if they figure those out, it's an interesting world we live in that I have to look at things this way. But let me see. I took some notes, and I have to try to see my little. Yes, I took them on my phone. Right now, Brian K. Morris is twitching at me because it's like, really, Nick? Really? You took them on your phone? Yes, I took them on my phone. Okie dokie. Let's see. There we are. Wanted to talk. I got a question, and I'm trying to remember because I wrote it down, but I did not write who asked. Okay, well, the question was my favorite sword fighters, my favorite swordsmen, swordswomen in movies and TV. And I should have spent more time thinking about this. But I can go through those. And, if you have people you want to chime in, first caveat, I have not seen Game of Thrones. I have not seen a single full episode of Game of Thrones. I have seen some bits and pieces, and I have seen the breakdowns of a couple of the fights by different people. So my response for Game of Thrones is biased both by my preferences as fighting style and my fairly limited knowledge. So to cover that, Yes, yes. Sergio's the water dance sword instructor. Even though he was a longsword guy, love him, absolutely love him. And knowing that that was a character that I love, I knew he would at least be impaled, if not killed. Every character I vaguely identify with in Hollywood gets impaled. It's gotten to the point where I'm a little creeped out by it. Um, him, uh, Artie from Warehouse 13, Coulson. There's something about a certain Obi-Wan, a certain breed of, I think, of swordsman, of character who's a support character who does, helps out, but they always end up getting stabbed. And the more I look down that road, the darker it gets. But what I like Arya is not just her fighting style, which it's pretty good, solid, especially for somebody so small. It's the adaptability, the idea uh, needle of I need a scaled down weapon. The idea of her short glaive because she needed a reach weapon she could use indoors. So she made a short glaive out of dragon glass. This makes sense. Hey, scale your weapons to your staff. She knew how to quarter staff. She needed something more aggressive. That made sense. Made me happy. Boom number uno will always be my man Zoro. Pretty much all of them. Even the chick with the whip. Still awesome. But Anthony Hopkins is Zoro. As much as I love Antonio, Anthony Hopkins is Zoro's just And I can't remember the name of the black and white one with the fabulous mustache, that pencil mustache. It's like precision. Great Zoro. Let's see. The Pirates of the Caribbean cast is pretty solid. I love those sword fights. My man Jack, obviously, but that's again not surprising to anybody. I'd love to see some of yours. Like the comment that I get is, okay, Nick, Star Wars, okay, best fighter. There's only one best fighter in Star Wars, Count Dooku. Okay, Christopher Lee as a real life swordsman, Christopher Lee as a real knife fighter, and Christopher Lee as freaking Count Dooku, who, if they'd shot the movies 20 years earlier, would have won. He was just better, even with an orthopedic grip. What the mechanics of the way that man moved, beautiful. I love Ray Park. I do not like the choreographed fight in episode 1 with Ray Park because, while it is beautiful and cinematically correct, from a technical aspect, he turned his back a lot on his opponents. And a lot of when you're fighting one person versus two people, angles become important. Because unless he was like a Mon Calamari with his eyes way out here, like a hammerhead, peripheral vision, you don't want them in your peripheral. Okay? My peripheral stops roughly right here, which is almost 90 degrees, which is almost 180. But I have really bizarre peripheral, and I don't want to fight somebody living there because they're done. So you want to keep roughly a nice 45-degree angle, but centered on you, and keep them roughly there when you're fighting two opponents. You don't want people behind you in reach. And since Jedi can like throw things and do things, there are problems with it. That being said, Ray Park's one of my favorite martial artists of all time. It's weird because for me to find the styles I love to watch, sword fight wise, or even fight choreography wise, I tend towards much older kung fu movies, and those movies are then newer ones. And that's a little technical and a bit of a hiccup with me. There's a period before wire fu was really a thing. And Warfu makes some beautiful visual while they're flying and all that. But in the old kung fu movies, they didn't have that. So to show action, you'd see that you've got snake versus eagle style going, right? And what you would see is a zoom in on how they turned and grabbed a wrist lock. And I was like, hey, that's kind of cool. Or, the way the foot blocks. Pop, 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 pop. The motions were a lot more believable, in my humble opinion. Jason Bourne's a great fight movie. You just have to watch. You know what I'm saying? Watch with an eye and think, does it make sense? Because, like, example, I love just about, if you put, I lost her name. Not Uma Thurman. Although she's okay. Obviously, Kill Bill was cute. But, got Mila Jovovich. You put Mila Jovovich in any movie where she's like sword fighting or flipping around, I'm going to watch and enjoy the tar out of it. I enjoyed there are two movies that have gun kata in them, and they had two different approaches, and it's really neat because that's how I can go the difference between hard and soft. No, first off, gun kata isn't real. Please stop trying to make it real. Just stop. I've had people message me. Do you know gun kata? You take a firearm, not two, a firearm, one at a time, please. You aim at a target, you squeeze the trigger, and it dies if you're doing your job right. There's a lot more to it, but that's basically blind firing stuff. It gets annoying. It can be beautiful, but annoying. But the sword fight scenes, you see some neat stuff. You look at Ultraviolet's take on that sort of thing versus Equilibrium's take and versus the sword fights, and you can see a hard style versus a soft style. When you get into martial arts, there are two basic kind of approaches. Hard styles tend to be very strike oriented, very abrupt. Okay, the motions are abrupt. Very much a karate. You think of the karate motions. They're snapping. And they, bam, bam, bam. Snap kick. Then you look at something like Wing Chun, where you're still doing punches, but there's more rotation elements. There's more, the body is softer. When you do a hard snapping motion, bam, 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 it's very hard on the tendons. It's very hard on the joints. So what I look for is longevity in training. And I do that with the way I sword fight. A lot of how I developed my style of sword fighting has obviously Western elements, but you do some screwball stuff. Well, I did some screwball stuff. I did some Tai Chi. I played with Hapkido guys. I played with different people where fluidity is not expressed often as a concept in Western martial arts. They just don't talk about it. They also don't talk about the other things. When you see a manual, there is a lot of assumed knowledge. They assume a basic understanding of grappling, they assume a basic understanding of fisticuffs a lot of the time. That was stuff that you learned at home. How to throw a punch, how to roll around, etc. And unarmed martial arts have been around a long time, pretty much in every culture, because before we even figured out sticks, we figured out we have these things and we can hit with them. So if you are learning a motion, the motion you do should equate to whatever you're using. What do I mean? I need something. You do. Where is? Oh, okay. We'll take this guy again. Cut. Hammer strike. Cut. Karambit. All the same motion. Boom. Okay? If your weapons are short enough and they fit your scale, all your natural body motions, wow, I'm so glad that candle's empty, are going to fit anything you do. So, CPI guy, what does that mean? That means a certain type of arm lock is sort of my bread and butter. It's something we learned. It's something you do a lot of as a way of getting in position for a basket hold, because that's pretty much the other half of CPI. A little bit of low leg blocks, a little bit of high, just basic A-frame kind of stuff. Don't hit me. Pop, 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 pop. Absorb the blow, deflect the blow. Wrist, elbow. Now, because of some of my other stuff, we can take wrist, elbow, and this, instead of blocking safe CPI, rotating them into things. This soft couch, preferably if you're a nice guy, you redirect the energy and you throw it. Bam. I just knifed somebody's neck. Catch, grab, stab. Wait a second. Very similar. I asked, how fast can you teach somebody to use a karambit? I was talking to a buddy. I don't know if it was you or not, Steve. And if it was you, cool. If not, I'll have to figure out if it was John Miner, if it was you, if it was Al. But the trick I found out with the karambit is the neatest way, fastest way, if you don't know how to make one of these go, to teach somebody to make one of these go, is throw a punch and miss. Okay. I'm going to punch me in the nose. Pop, right? If a karambit, punch me in the nose, it hits. Yay. Now, I punch me and miss. Now, instead of grazing across just this has now opened all that up. Do it a little higher, blind for life. Now they're not a threat. Hate to say it. You take both of somebody's eyes or one of their eyes in a single whip strike. Done. A lot of knife work isn't how you get the knife there. What kind of knife you're holding. It's where you get the knife. It's understanding basic anatomy. So you have anatomy for damage, which is I'm fencing or I'm playing the game. I can slice up forearms all day. People aren't likely to die compared to other shots. Now, you hit any of your joints, wrist, you could obviously do damage, especially this way. If you can get an open cut down the inside of a wrist, that's going to open. That's a bad way to go. Here, up into the armpit, down into the neck, sideways across the guts. They may survive after a while, but if they have to hold their guts in, they're done. Upwards at about a 45 into the kidneys. This is really unpleasant stuff. It's not what I like to talk about, but it's like the back of the knee, up into the groin, across the femoral artery. There are only so many places that really rapidly put somebody down. And once you know them, you then can train to do so. I just don't like to. That's why, for self-defense, I usually carry something like a stick. I don't have to. I mean, I can walk around with the 357 on my belt. Heck, I can walk around with the 12 gauge over my shoulder, not really worry about much anything within my sight range. But, one, I'm not overly fond of shotguns because my shoulders aren't as attached as they should be. Two, I don't want to put somebody in the ground per minute if I can avoid it. Which is why the way I teach is distract, disable, escape, whatever possible. Because one thing that you really, really, when people come defensively, when they talk, my goal is to remove the threat. Any threat you remove should not create another threat. What that means is, in this case, the threat of legal prosecution. That's a threat. That will ruin your life as much as getting cut up. Because you go to jail, horrible things happen. We live in a nation where the sexual abuse that occurs in incarceration is considered part of the punishment. Is it right? No. Is it something that gets discussed? Yeah, it's there. Rubber bullets and taser rounds. Yeah, see? I love concepts like that too. You know, personally, I'm a rather big fan of wasp spray. You know, just because you have about a 25-foot range, there's a if you're carrying pepper spray, if you're carrying mace, you're carrying pepper spray or mace for the purpose of carrying pepper spray or mace. If you're carrying wasp spray is for dealing with wasps or any idiot with a stinger. You know, that's why I walk often with a cane. So many of my videos, many of the weapons I use, many of the tools are built around something roughly cane length. You know, here we go. Chibo has a mermaid. It's quite pretty. Smudged slightly because I didn't know the sealant would blur with the pigment, but nice little mermaid. I can defend myself reasonably well with a stick of this length, in part because I've trained with it. If I'm going out, whoops, sorry. Ooh, you saw that there's like a bookcase back there. Anyway, this is my walking stick. This was my marshalling stick when I was at MIT. Had my colors, I still love it. I still use it when I'm training because this can be anything and it's long enough. Let me see if I can get to do most pros defensively. Now, could I carry a sword cane everywhere I went? Yeah. I even checked. Indiana doesn't give a rat's butt about it. The problem is, at the end of the day, if you're carrying a sword cane and you defend yourself with a sword cane, they're going to ask you, why are you carrying a sword cane? If you're carrying, if I have to defend somebody, it's like, why were you carrying a stick? Because I'm gimpy, sir. Why didn't you run? Because I'm gimpy, sir. Well, you broke this guy's leg, arm, whatever. Yes, sir. I did not break his head. I could have, but he stopped doing what he was doing. Understanding that even under fear, even under duress, it is your legal duty to do the minimum damage to safely escape. On the other side of prosecution, and I am not a lawyer, okay? I am not a lawyer. Please don't think I am. This is my personal understanding, and me expressing my understanding. It is not legal advice, but it is my philosophy. So I don't want any misunderstandings there. So you learned that. The other thing is we are in a very strange political environment that could go a lot of ways. We're seeing, as the polarization goes, the amendments, the Second Amendment is being addressed, not necessarily positively, not necessarily negatively, but it is being something that can vary radically from town to town, state to state, and it's different in this nation. It's certainly different overseas. It doesn't exist, you know. So you have to figure out the safety and legality while balancing your own. Let's be honest. I am handicapped. I've been stubborn about it. I'm working on that. You know, admitting I have physical limitations and actually going, okay, fine, I have them, accept it, is a process for me. I think everyone is allowed a measure of pride, you know? And I'm wise enough to know it's there, but human enough that I still have to deal with it. So when I look at training, you look at it that way. That's why I always tell, you know, if you walk in a place, you should be able, if you don't know the exits, you should be able to reasonably guess where the exits are. I've yet to meet a kitchen that doesn't have a door out the back. In like a restaurant, you know, because that's a form. Most homes are laid out fairly reasonably. If you are capable of escaping through a window, that's a good thing to know too. You think in terms of that. You watch your surroundings. There's a lovely video again by love it on Warrior Poet. I like a lot of his stuff. Not all of it, but I like a lot of it. Where it's who's the most dangerous man in the room. And there are a couple. There's the evil guy who's out to cause trouble is a very dangerous person. The guy who has the training is a potentially a very dangerous person. And then there's the guy no one sees coming. Now, I'm not a bad guy, so I'm not going to be that guy. And I'm not a badass, pardon my French, because I'm just not, round as a shape. I'm a Hawaiian shirt, wearing gimpy-legged dad. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather be out playing in a pond with my son than I would be doing just about most anything else. You know what I mean? Certainly not like trying to prove some kind of machismo bullshit. Pardon my French again. But I also know how to make things go if I have to. But I do so without a desire to. Because it sucks. A lot of people I know have actually never been in a physical altercation. I've been in enough. I'm going to say that. I've been in enough civilian-based physical altercations that it is something I would never seek out. But at the same level, from a civilian perspective, I am not a cop. I am not a vet. I'm not a soldier of any sort. I do have a reasonable understanding of violence. And violence is a reality. It will touch everybody's life at one point or another, and it's how you're going to deal with it. So, when you're talking, like I said, I teach sword fighting, and yeah, sword fighting in itself is. I've been told. I get things like, why would you bother? We live in the age of the gun. Violence has Steve Clausen said violence has consequences. Absolutely. And I tell people it has consequences on both sides. The person who endures violence, who is damaged by it, whatever happens has consequences. There are consequences of the person who inflicts it. No matter how just, there are going to be consequences. A lot of people, and if there's something I could break, it would be the people who have the secret superhero in the back of their mind. God, I hate the secret superhero. The guys are like, well, yeah, they're watching the show. I can take them. They puff up. And I was like, dude, I saw you run like a little girl when you saw a raccoon in your garbage can. And to be credit, I'd run. Some of the raccoons I've seen, I'd run like a little girl too. Well, actually, I'd gimp in a hobbit-like manner. Vaguely half circular because one leg's shorter than the other, so I might as well walking in a circle. But we need to be realistic about ourselves. Honest self-analysis. Know who you are and know what you can do. You have to understand that. We're all geared at looking at other people thinking we know what they do. And most of the time, we're wrong. But know yourself. Most people that I teach don't know, like, their reach. They don't know their stride. They don't know how much ground they'll cover in one step, in two, how fast they can do that. They don't understand, and you have to. If you're going to study any martial art, any system, I don't care if you're strip fencing, classical fencing, Aikido, Kendo, Bushido, Bullshido, Ninjutsu, whatever. And yes, there was a joke in there. If you don't know your reach, your own movement, your own center of balance, you will fail painfully. I still fall down sometimes. I fall down because I've stopped paying attention to what's around me, or a system has stopped. I have nerve damage. My leg, every so often, likes to go on vacation. I'll be bopping along, doing my own stuff, and it's like, oh, I'm not working now. And sometimes it just locks straight out, and I peg leg around. And sometimes it just says, nope, I'm on vacation nap time. And then I fall over. And now that hasn't happened in a while. I've been working on it, and I am overweight. So my balance both is not where it should be, and because my weight fluctuates, it moves a bit, which is kind of problematic. I'm working on it. But you have to get to the place where you know where you are. And I talk in here a lot. A lot of pages on analyzing your opponents by how they move, how they act. By paying attention to people, you will learn how you'll be able to predict their actions reasonably. I believe reasonable is 80-20. When you look at a bell curve, when you look at statistics, something really weird starts happening when you start getting past the 80% line. It gets much more effort to get closer to perfection. And there comes a point where no one will ever be 100% perfect. So that line just gets so narrow and so steep. It becomes not worth the amount of effort. So 99, most of the time, 99% of the time, 80% is sufficient. But most of the time, 80% of, if once you're rolling, is going to be right if you know what you're talking about. And some people can go past that, but I shoot for that. I also think, even though I teach defense, if you are aware, okay, and your mind is ticking, that means some things. That means this is a cell phone. It is a little stylized computer that lets me look at cat pictures and talk to people and buy things I probably shouldn't. Lots of fun stuff with this little dude. And watch movies and watch YouTube with lovely channels like the Historical Fencing Guild. But if I'm looking at this, I'm not looking out there. So this lives in here till I am. If I'm looking at my phone, I'm going to move off. I'm going to do a perimeter sweep. And I'm going to look at my phone, figure out what I'm doing. Not stay there long because you can keep aware of the time and go back if you're out. And then do another perimeter sweep. There are ways to do this and ways to fix that. And one thing I love, gamification is the process of making games out of activities for benefit. I briefly studied Tai Chi. Even my study buddy. Okay, sorry, even that short study. Tai Chi is amazing in any variant, and I mean any variant. There was a version when I was in bad shape that's actually chair Tai Chi. My wife found the video, and you do a modified version of movements in a chair if you can't move, and it actually helped a lot. Obviously, I've done different versions, and what happened is I took, for my personal training, and this isn't how I teach other people, okay? This isn't how I maintain other people's stuff. And it's not a matter of keeping a secret or anything. It's that my background calls for it. I've taken a lot of my fencing motions, and I've taken a lot of the Tai Chi motions, and I've sort of blended them into something that's not quite a kata, because I never do it the same way. It's in part diagnostic tool where I'm going to go through my shots nice and slow. I'm going to cover the different areas, and I'm doing it slow so that when I feel like, okay, I did that, believe it or not, right there I got shoot from my elbow. You'd be surprised the way I learned some of the self-defense has damaged my elbows just a little bit. Okay. So, okay, that's tight. Now I'll stop and I'll slowly do that, okay, over and over to get it in form. The approach of Tai Chi, which is slow movement and control to achieve perfection, totally, we're not even looking at metaphysics. We're not looking at flowing energies and you are the water and all that. No, we're just talking about handling body mechanics. That is how you're going to be able to teach yourself parry stop. That gives me just enough room. Why is my right hand farther? Because my right hand is usually forward. So, looks farther here, rotate to my normal stance, and I'm in perfect. Ain't that neat? That builds the muscle memory. And the only way to do it is time and effort. And you do things. And you do the same things. You know, one of my all-time favorite quotes, and it's rare on a Friday that goes by that I don't say it, is, Bruce Lee saying, "I don't fear the man who knows 10,000 kicks. I fear the man who does one kick 10,000 times." You want, find yourself, maintain that. That's how, because I know people, oh my gosh, I'm approaching 40, and the joke, people say, you're pushing 40, 40 is pushing back. That happened to me in my 20s with some severe injury, a little bit in the 30s, but not much because I'd already been married a while, so I didn't have much. By now, 40 is just sort of hey, I made it. No one, money will again exchange hands that I live this long, but assuming I live that long, I don't, knock on wood. But know your body. Know how it changes. This is why you have to do something even when you're stiff. When you acquire injuries and with weather and things, here's a shocker. There are good days, there are bad days. You do the wrong thing, you lift too much. I cracked, I did a number on my ankle, and it is still pretty swollen. Last night I got hit with a hopping, moving dolly. The edge of it popped out from under a thing. Steve was actually over here helping me with something, moving in a really cool glass door cabinet, and it just cracked into my ankle. I'm glad I've been taking my meds, so nothing broke. Will you stop? Part of the reason I have, a very plain background is I'm going to do that. Well, can't do much more. Okay. Is I don't ever want my house to look like a Nuke's Top 5 video where, I'm doing something in a shadow figure. Nope. None of that. Anyway, the thing hit my knee, my elbow. So I've been moving. But, as I'm moving, I'm like, okay, it's still holding my weight. I'm checking. You have to converse with your body in that you have to see. You have to move. And there are routines. I hate katas. I will always hate katas. Because that's like learning to play one song. Because if you learn one song but you don't learn any theory, your response is going to be the same song. And if they figure out your tune, you're pooped. So you have to check and train. And what I did, like I said, I incorporated it so I can drill, and I can drill with anything. People tell you need fencing. You do not. You need an SSO. Here's an SSO. What is this? In my hands, this is literally any weapon. This can be, I'd use an axe, like a pole, like a spear. I can fence with it. Whatever. Versatile. That means as I'm feeling, I can drill. That's what you want. I am and will always be, again, a generalist. Get a general understanding. Now, you don't have to stay there. Everybody specializes in something. But make sure you keep your general and make sure you're aware of your body. And once you're aware of your body and how you're moving, you can watch people. And this is one of those things. I used to go to Marquette Mall a little bit. Used to go to a place called Maple Lane Mall in LaPorte. And later years, I went to South Lake Mall in Portage. What I would do is, one, after I got a little flush, I would get a little bit of good Chinese food because yum. And I would sit and I would watch people. Oh, Nick, no, not like, no. Watch how they move. Watch how they interact. Watch the petty dramas and start to figure out what they're doing. This is how you end up into sociology, by the way. When you're more worried about the behaviors and interaction than the individual ego, you bump into sociology. And I like sociology. And you start to read crowds. You start to read, because people are very strange. We're flighty herd animals. And a dominant personality will change a whole room, can change a whole building. You can watch it ripple. I believe in certain ways fear, joy, sadness, and rage are all contagious. And the best example is watch a concert. No, don't listen to the music. Kind of zone that out, but watch how it ripples, because you can watch it just slower than the speed of sound, like the speed of thought, the speed of understanding will ripple out, and people will be moved or not by the subject. And you watch this, and you watch how people move, and you watch, look at videos of fencing, look at videos of whatever style you're going to, and watch what people, because everybody has tells. Everybody has tells. You have tells. I have tells. We all have things we prefer. And if you do that enough, you get dang near precock. Because you can watch, and you start learning how people of certain builds move. Very tall people tend to root a bit before they throw a long reach. You know what I'm saying? Or they'll encourage the string that runs between people's wrists and ankles. There's a little metal string. It's kind of weird, but they'll reach and step, and usually it's opposite. So most people, if you watch them walk, locomotion, the opposite arm and leg go. So if they step, a lot of times the other one will go, but not always at the same time. So you'll see a trained fighter, their heel's going to leave the ground just a nanosecond before the attack, because like a proper punch doesn't start here or here or here, or even in the twist or in the middle or all the way down. It starts with a push off the leg, and the force just rattles and magnifies with the body mechanics to pull it around and then drive it forward. So that means if you can see where it starts, it goes. A lot of times right here will tell you, because to pivot, it shows right there, right there. You can tell what I'm doing just by watching like this square, tracking their eyes. So if you can kind of keep almost a triangle in your mind, you can track what people are going to do much easier and much better than if you don't. If you just look for the big motions, look for the little thing that happens first. Lightning hits people, but thunder is what scares them a lot of times. And with the punch is the thunder. It's not the lightning. It really, the attack, there's going to be a whole shock of their body doing electrical things. And there's going to be reactions in any combat, in any situation. So you want to be able to walk around. And if you see somebody who's, when you've learned body language, who is putting out the wrong body language, and what's really great is it starts to be unconscious. You're not consciously doing it. You're just on passive scan. You look around, and you'll get this ping. It's like the old submarine movies. Boop, boop. I'm walking, and I got the tune in my head. I'm walking down the road, walking through the store with my son, shopping, doing stuff. Boop, boop. Everything stops as soon as I get a ping. As soon as my mind registers, then you play the game. What's wrong with this picture? Something pinged. And every time your gut says that, there's something. I don't care what it is. It might be minor. It might be a squirrel thinking about running into the road, and it hasn't yet. It might be a guy who's going to do something bad, and they're looking around. They're moving wrong. It might be just part of the floor is discolored. It looks like a board is loose or something. Always, what is wrong with this picture? And when you're not that, when you're sitting there, you should never be mentally like, I don't want to mentally bored, mentally off. You don't want to spend too much time there because it's hard to track time when you're off. It's like you start, if you're in a restaurant, you have to ask yourself, what happens if a bad guy comes through the door? What am I going to do? Am I going to engage? I'm sorry. I've been talking and I got off the comments, so I apologize, Cindy. Proxemics and kinetics. Yes. I love that and where it overlaps with ergonomics. That's why this grip is more comfortable for me than another grip, which I'm not really finding anything that's okay. These are two very similar products, believe it or not. They're both knife simulators. They're both very similar. Yes, lie to me. Oh my gosh, I love it. I live dry. Okay, this is interesting. Okay, I love Lie to Me, and I love The Mentalist too, even though it's not as good. Because it really goes into the concepts, and I can't remember the real guy because Dr. Lightman was based on a real person. But micro expressions, I know a lot of them. And one I watch for constantly is disgust, because disgust is one of the most. It's funny because I flashed it as I was thinking about it. Powerful, and it's a warning. Disgust is important. Because usually when people attack somebody, they're no longer a person to the attacker. Okay? There's a line that crosses. It goes across their face. Yes, I'm really big into micro expressions, and I need to. It's one of those. I'm a bit of a natural, and I'm a bit of studied from my experiences, and that's how you get there. How you know something's wrong is that, and that applies to what we do. Because that's part of how they're moving. That set of tells is going to tell you how they fight to an extent. Nothing is in a vacuum, and no deduction is 100% because there's always a little missing information. My man Sherlock Holmes. I'm gonna but you were talking disgust. I don't go to celebrities when I go to cons. And the reason I don't go to celebrities when I go to cons, aside from I'd rather not stand in line, is as much as I like somebody for whatever they've done, even if a personal hero is there, I might watch him, but I'd never stand in line for the autograph thing, because if you watch the micro expressions of most of them, they're miserable. And they're trying to be there, and it's a gift to their fans, and I respect, and it's really cool. But if you look at the videos. We're in that era of video cons, but look at the old videos from like Comic Con or any of, especially like when you see the Star Trek actors or the Babylon 5 actors or the Star Wars actors, and they're all sitting in a row, and they're signing stuff and they're talking. Check the micro expressions. It hurts. They're uncomfortable much of the time. A lot of them are tired. They're embarrassed. They're hungry. You can see it all go across. And because it's there, I could never inflict intentionally a little bit more of that on somebody. So I tend to avoid that kind of scenario. You get good enough at it, you'll know when people are mad before they're mad. And then they get annoyed. It's like, I'm not angry. Well, I was angry because you figured out. No, you weren't. You flashed all the signs. Well, you're misreading them. No, I'm not. Okay. But yeah, that actually, and that's where one thing I found in my book that I've not seen in any is talking about looking at the way people move, looking at the way they approach, the way they approach combat, the way they approach life will tell you a lot of how they fight. Personalities overlap. That's why astrology works in some aspects. Uh, the whole elemental association things are shortcut ways for understanding people's nature, because we need that. We need shortcuts to read the complexity of expression that is body language. Because like if I'm here, I look kind of goofy. Oh, hi, I'm Bob from Enzyme, or whatever that. Wow, I can't remember the name of the pill, but you know, I go, and people go derp. Like I can take, and people see my intelligence, and they just go about 20 points. I lose 20 points of intelligence by smiling most of the time. I'm okay with that. It may shock you that I'm okay with the universe underestimating me. I was taught to sandbag because that's a great survival technique, because that means you have a little more in the tank than people expect. You're going to find, the more you do that, and you really should look into that, look into the techniques, because it all overlaps. Everything overlaps. If you want to write about people, understand how they express the emotions. Like the difference between a wince of physical pain and a wince of emotional pain. Anger, sorrow, disgust can all look very similar, especially given things like gender, a very masculine person. Men are taught not to, for example, in America, classically, men are taught not to express our emotions a lot. It's toxic. A lot of people, but that's part of what makes the gender roles of a man. So a lot of times, sadness and fear will manifest as anger, because anger is one of the few emotions it is acceptable for a man to express in public. Now, you read, and it's funny, you read about like the Vikings, you read historical things, and we weren't always that way. Ancient world men, we wept openly because there's nothing wrong with that then. Now we have this bizarre advanced stoicism, like it's a perversion of stoicism where, you can't, if you feel you're weak, if you don't feel you're uneducated, so you have to always maintain cool. I have come to hate cool. Hence this shirt. Hate cool. I am not aloof. I actually care. Well, that's not cool. You're right. It's not. I am not a cool. Cool is one side of lukewarm. I am not. I am many things, but lukewarm about anything is not how I am. And you shouldn't be either. Humanity is made great by the applications of its passions. Controlled application, sure, but application. Yeah, man, I don't care. Whatever. Well, you can't affect me, so that makes me better than you. No, it doesn't. It means you have no personal fortitude to express what you care about. The whole Simon Pegg being a geek is about being unabashedly passionate about your interests. And I love that. I am a nerd too. Don't get me wrong. I can just deep dive some stuff that's downright ancient world junk. But I can be geeky about it too. I'm passionate about this is cool. And it layers. And we got to be who we are. And that's something I think media interests, I think societal norms are interfering. And that affects your fighting so much, especially young ladies. Many times, the young ladies I train with who have come to me, they want to learn defense for one reason or another, or they came with somebody. That's always fun when they come with somebody and they're standing in the background. And I love the backroom students who care. Okay? Like in the classroom, you have the people who sit up front. I want to know what's going on. Or me, because I'm deaf and blind a lot of times. But you have the middle rows, and then you have the back row people who, like, they're back row people who want to watch. They want to learn, but they want to be left alone. They want to figure it out on their own. I get some of my best students from there. Because eventually I'll let them do that till I'm like, no. Well, why are you calling on me? Because you don't think I should. You don't think you're worth it. What's up? Well, what? I watch you work. Wow, I think my net glitched while I was actually expressing a mental glitch, so that's cool. But the eyebrow goes up, and I'm like, what? That's what I want to know. And then you bring them forward, and if they can get past the, and I'm the same way. Good God, I'm an introvert. Nick, you're wearing 80s Miami or 80s Hawaii on your chest. A glow-in-the-dark neck knife, doing a channel on YouTube, and you're an introvert? Oh, yeah, totally. Like, I'm comfortable with insults. I know them. Compliments mess with me. I've had to learn to be zen about that. It's like, thank you. Back in my mind, I was like, it's bullshit, but it would be rude for me to say. And that might be the only way I can process compliments sometimes. But it all that's going on in people's heads, and you read the micro expressions. Just like disgust in a student is an interesting thing to see, because a lot of times it will come up when they've decided they're better than the lesson, at which point an intervention might need to be held. It's a great time to demonstrate, because one, optimally, they may be past this. This may be to remediate them. But sometimes they think they are, they aren't, and the only way to address that is, expectation meet reality. One of you will break. But I have been talking for over 2 hours. The commentary has petered down, so either you guys really like what I'm saying, or people have flaked right out. So I'm thinking I'm going to call it. This was a little discussy. Like I said, I got thrown off. Next week, I will try to be a little more on par. I have some surprises planned. And if they come underway, it'll be really good. A lot of it depends on weather. I do plan to do a video on this, a video on on the Sheffield knife, which is now buried under things. So let me see if I can grab it real quick. Oh no, it's oh, there it is. Long arm. Gonna do a unboxing and reveal video on that. Steve, the Hello Karambit still exists, and it is a great soft. Glad that's empty. Trainer. I do that just because I love Steve. I like to remind him the Hello Karambit. Y'all did good. Thanks for hosting. Cindy, thank you so much. I just want to shout her out because she's a patron, and she can tell you right now my patrons aren't getting a lot because I give everything to everybody. But you get first dibs, and I want you to understand that. The patrons, either through Patreon or my supporters through other means, get dibs. So if you have something you want me to talk about, questions, commentary, anything, hit me up through Facebook, hit me up through there. I'll make it happen. That's how I serve the people who benefit me and what you get out of it. The rest, please, for your sake, if not mine, buy my book, The Simple Sword by Nicholas Stockard, Historical Fencing Guild's Manual of Defense, Volume 1. Volume 2 will be out as I can get through my contract work. I have a Patreon, as I've mentioned. The links will be in the gobbledygook at the bottom of this video when I post it. Or you just look up the Historical Fencing Guild with the little boot like is on the corner of the screen, or should be. And you can support, and I'm going to try to come up with some nifty things for you guys. preview tastes, because at the worst I get some readers. If you do read my book or you buy it, please review it, because one, I want to know what you think, almost more than anything, and two, it's good for my analytics. Uh, Outside of that, I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but if you want to be part of the conversation more than this, the Historical Fencing Guild has a public group on Facebook, and just type in the Historical Fencing Guild group. Look for the boot. I keep things simple, and we can converse and talk, because this is all about me trying to put stuff out there, free, easy, simple for the people out there. So on top of that, folks, I will be back actually earlier in the coming week with some new videos, and I will be right here at 8 o'clock next Friday, Eastern Time, for another live stream episode of the Historical Fencing Guild's live stream. So until then, support your local swordmaster.